Hi friends, it's your favorite procrastinator Shinra here. I did not mean to ghost you guys for 8 months. It's an update on what I've been doing the past 8 months and what I'm currently doing before we get into the main topic of this video, which is things you need to know before you start learning CS. I guess I moved 3 times, different background, got really into plants, became a computer science teaching assistant, so obviously I know all the computer science now. Remind me to make a video on that. And my actual plans. Worked at Google and I am now dying through recruiting. I have 9 interviews this week, so of course this is a perfect time for me to start a YouTube video instead of practicing or actually just staying sane during recruiting season, because we love having an executive function disability. So now let's actually jump to the content of this video. For this video, I just want to quickly talk about a few things that I thought it would be good to know before you actually start CS, both from my personal experiences and as my experiences as a teaching assistant for an Intro to Computer Science class. This is mostly geared toward if you are taking your first ever CS class, things that I just want to make sure everyone is on the same page on before you start computer science and before you start feeling bad about yourselves because of computer science. And hopefully this video can help you reframe the way you think about computer science and succeed in CS. This is just my personal experiences, so if you guys have common misconceptions or things that you wish you knew before you started CS, please put them in the comments so that we can all know. And I also am super excited to learn something new, because I feel like every other week I learn something about CS and then I realize, wait, shouldn't I have known this my freshman year? I have 5 things on my paper that I will go through, and then we will reach the end of this video. So let's get started. Number 1. People are terrible at teaching computer science. So if you feel like at any point you're not learning computer science correct, it actually might not be your fault. If you think about it, most other fields have education degrees and people who learn how to teach these concepts, but computer science is such a new field and the field changes so quickly every year that it's actually not possible for people to get a degree in teaching computer science and immediately teach it. Most computer science professors did not have education degrees, which is super different from your experiences perhaps in high school, where at least in the US, teachers need a master's of education to be able to teach in public schools. Even at a lot of schools, a lot of the teaching is done by teaching assistants who are people that are like barely 1 or 2 years older than you. So if you really think about it, no one really knows how to teach this subject, so if you're bad at it, it really just is not your fault. It's because people don't know how to teach the subject. So computer science, I think as a discipline, requires a lot of initiative in figuring out how do you learn and how can you teach yourself this content, because honestly, people just don't know how to teach computer science, and it's not their fault, it's not your fault, just another barrier that exists in this field. Secondly, what I want to emphasize is, especially in introduction classes, people very often think of coding as the same thing as computer science. So that means that if your code doesn't work, you immediately think, oh, I must be terrible at computer science. And this is, for me, something that really got me to quit computer science my freshman year, because, well, I'm dyslexic. I can't read code, I can't interpret code, and my brain doesn't process code. So it's really hard to separate coding from computer science in the very beginning. But for me, now I try to make kind of this analogy. It might make more sense for dyslexics, but I think of coding as more of spelling and grammar, and computer science as actually writing. And to be a good writer, you don't have to have good spelling or grammar. That's very important, but it's not necessary. So for a lot of fields in computer science, really thinking strategically, thinking analytically, and thinking through problems and being able to solve problems on your own, as well as working with others to build something, is more of the core part of computer science, personally for me, than the ability to write code. I guess 2.1. The reason why coding is hard for you is probably because code itself is badly designed. This is why there are so many code upgrades every year. This is why we switch from Java to Python, or C++ or C#. I don't even know what these languages are anymore. And the reason why these languages get updated every year is because code in the first place is not well designed. There's no way it's going to be as well designed as a language, because it's invented by a handful of people at most. And if you think about languages like English, Chinese, those are developed by people over long periods of time. So the reason why coding is not intuitive to you is literally because people are designing an entire language in this world from scratch, and it's bound to be hard for other people to understand. And I think very often intro to computer science classes do emphasize coding because coding is the main thing that we see in computer science. But just like in elementary school, you have to learn how to spell and use grammar before you actually get to write. It's very similar in that way, but I think the actual computer science part is writing, but not coding. This might be a hot take, but I truly don't think coding is that essential in computer science. Number 3. Getting a computer science degree does not mean you understand CS. I feel like I can safely say this as someone who was 2 classes away from graduating with a CS degree, that I don't understand how computers work. So I actually took my first computer science class. It was called Introduction to Object-Oriented Programming. By the end of the class, I still didn't know what object-oriented programming is. To be honest, if you ask me to describe it now to you, I don't think I can. And I think the issue in computer science is that computer science is built on top of so many other disciplines that very often when you learn something at first, it's actually jumping over so many steps to get to this point that it can be really confusing to you. So when I was first learning computer science, I was very confused, like, how can I just type this thing and have this computer do this? Why is it doing that? And the answer here is just because, and that was really frustrating to me, and that made me feel like I didn't understand computer science. But it's more because you didn't have to understand everything else that goes into it, and that can feel like you don't understand the topic, but that's purely because you just don't have to know it. And I personally think if I were to if I truly want to understand computer science, I would first learn electricity and magnetism, then learn electrical engineering, and then learn computer science. But very often people don't have to do the first 2 steps before learning how to code and learning how to build things, and that can feel very disorienting to you, especially in high school settings where everything we learn kind of built on top of each other, right? You learn how to add, and then you learn how to subtract, and when you learn algebra, you work with adding and subtracting. But learning computer science is almost like teaching you this complicated algorithm and telling you, okay, this is how it works, please do it, without teaching you how to add, which honestly, now that I think of it, is literally what computer science is when they ask kids to implement fancy algorithms that took decades of PhDs to complete, and then asking a college freshman to do it. So you're bound to be confused. You're bound to be like, why does this work? And why can I do this? And how does a computer work? And by the end of my degree, honestly, I still don't really know. That was something that was really hard for me to get over, because I thought that if I learned something, I would understand every part of it by the end. And that's high-key not the case in computer science. And in computer science especially, because it's built upon so many other things, I still feel like I don't know anything about computer science, and I think the only thing I can really learn is how to work with computers and how to work with other people to work with computers, and how to look things up when I don't understand it so I can work with computers in the future, and not as much of the how is the computer actually getting built? What are the things that goes into this? Because if you really think about it, if you gave Einstein a computer from today and asked him to write a computer program, he would be as confused as you are, because it's just built upon so much knowledge that our professors don't deem it necessary for us to learn. And truly, it's not necessary for you to learn, but it just feels weird that you don't know it. Number 4, I think this is also something that I noticed a lot, both when I was a student and when I'm talking to students as a teaching assistant. It's very often it feels like, okay, when your code doesn't compile or when you can't finish this thing during a deadline, that means that you're not succeeding in CS. I think a lot of issues in computer science is imposter syndrome, because you don't realize that succeeding in computer science is actually very different from what you're used to it being. And it's such an either-or thing when your code doesn't compile, that it feels like you're either good at CS or you're not, depending on whether or not your code compiles. But that's really not a good measure of your success in CS. Success in anything is never an either-or thing, and I think personally the fact that coding code that works and versus code that doesn't work, feeling like it's an either-or thing, always made me feel like I was really bad at CS. But in reality, there are so many other factors at play. And the other thing is, students come in on very unequal footing. So then when you feel like, when you see, especially during intro to computer science classes, I personally have never touched code in any capacity before coming to Brown. So when I'm in a computer science class, sitting in a computer lab, looking at my peers who are taking the same class as me and have seen them finish their projects so much faster than I did, I felt as if I was bad at CS, but I didn't consider that a lot of them have taken classes like AP Computer Science while they were in high school, or just grew up with more privilege privilege, and I think that's not a lot of what's causing imposter syndrome. It's just a lot of what you don't see going on, and assuming people all came from the same spots in computer science. And the last thing is, going off of that, you are definitely doing great in computer science. I don't know who you are, we've never met. Please introduce yourself in the comments, but I truly believe that you're doing really well in computer science, because computer science is one of those disciplines that's so easy to feel like you're not doing well in computer science, because again, your code either works or it doesn't work. It feels like you either get it or you don't get it. But in computer science, your code not working doesn't necessarily mean that you're bad at computer science, and you not understanding a concept in computer science might be very well be because it was not something that you have to understand, or because it was taught poorly to you. And I think just understanding that and knowing that if you work hard in computer science, you can do well, and if you don't like computer science, it's also completely okay for you to quit. I think you're doing great. I think you're gonna do great in computer science. Good luck with the rest of your classes, and I will see you as soon as recruiting is over. Goodbye! Or maybe I'll see you guys more this week because I don't want to prep for interviews.